The next step in Michael Penix's development is stepping up on the road against the 49ers in week 7.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode, we will be breaking down can whether Mike Penix get right on the road. Can the Atlanta Falcons handle the 49ers play action passing attack, especially with George Kittle returning to the lineup? And what's going on with Ray-Ray McCloud? We'll get into all of that on today's episode, but I appreciate each and every one of you that is here with us as an everydayer. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you have to do to become an everydayer, subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. And of course, if you know who I am, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, aka Mr. Drew, aka Sirius Black, aka Mr. AKA, and I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for over 20 years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong here on this podcast. So let's talk about Michael Penix on the road. I think the next stage in his development is going to be playing well on the road, because I looked at the numbers and they're not that good when it comes to Michael Penix playing on the road. Yes, we have a small sample size, 2 road games this year, 1 road game last year against Washington. But when you look at some of the efficiency metrics of Michael Penix, whether you look at quarterback rating, whether you look at success rate, he's basically been one of the worst road quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to these efficiency metrics, right? You look at passer rating just this year in the 2 road games he's played this year, right? And you look at all the qualifying quarterbacks that have at least made 28 pass attempts on the road so far this year, heading into week 7 through 6 weeks. Michael Penix is dead last out of the 36 quarterbacks that qualify in quarterback rating. He's 33rd out of 36 quarterbacks in success rate. Only Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, and Cam Ward or below him, and I imagine based off of Thursday night's game, if I can't even remember who was the road team in that one, but maybe Flacco's moved up the rankings, but we're only factoring in through the first 6 games. But you also have the Washington game from last year, where if we use Penix's 39 pass attempts as a qualifying benchmark, Penix would have rated 43rd out of 46 quarterbacks in terms of quarterback rating on the road. He would have been 45th out of 46 in terms of success rate. So again, long story short, he has to get better on the road. And of course, we know that, performing on the road is something that young quarterbacks often tend to struggle with. You look at the last 2 seasons, the top 50 quarterbacks that have had at least 50 pass attempts on the road in that combined time, only 2 of those players in the top half of that top 50, top 25, have been drafted in the last 3 years. That's Jaden Daniels and that's Drake May. And you look at the 2 rookies from this current year, 2025, that have played, that qualify, Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward, they rank 49th and 50th respectively in that metric. And then every other quarterback taken in 2023 or 2024 is in the bottom 25 as well. We know Matt Ryan also struggled early on the road throughout his NFL career. You look at his success rate, just looking at success rate. In his rookie year on the road, he was 24th in the league that year. In 2009, he improved the league average about 16th. 2010, he was 19th. 2011, he was 15th. And then finally in 2012, he had that breakthrough, and he was number 1 in the league in success rate on the road in that 5th season. So we're hoping that that is something that, Michael Penix, we can get, there sooner than 5 years. But, we're hoping that some of the recent changes that the Falcons have made, Zach Robinson being on the sideline, the increased effectiveness of the quick game, perhaps the play action passing game, those are going to be some things that will be able to facilitate and fuel Penix being able to perform this weekend on the road, and those road woes can go away. We don't need Penix to, light the world on fire this weekend against the 49ers. The expectation is the run game and the defense will do the bulk of the heavy lifting, but if we can get like a 1 pump performance, we don't need 2 pumps, but at least get a 1 pump solid game manager performance in the run game and the defense come to play. That should be more than good enough for Penix to have a a better performance on the road. Now, the 49ers are going to be the first of several road opportunities that Penix is going to have over the next 2 months. Right after this week, the Falcons will be back home against Miami in week 8, but then they have a 2-game road stand starting first in New England, and then, of course, off to Germany to face the Indianapolis Colts. Then you go back home against Carolina, and then you have a 2-game road stand to finish out in November against the Saints and the Jets. Now, those Saints and Jets games, those are arguably the 2 weakest opponents that the Falcons face on the road this upcoming season, arguably the 2 weakest opponents that the Falcons face on their season, on their entire schedule, home or away at this stage in the season. And so you have 5 opportunities basically over the next 7 weeks to become a road warrior. 2 against those lesser opponents in the Saints and Jets, and then 3 against less, not so weak opponents in the 49ers, Patriots, and Colts. And basically, if the season ended right now, today, as I'm recording this, the 49ers, Patriots, and Colts would all be playoff teams. And so, essentially, if we're oversimplifying, the hope is that you can get a playoff caliber performance from your young quarterback on the road against those 3 upcoming opponents, especially if you can win those games. And of course, the 49ers are arguably the most important of those 3 games. If you're going to win one of those 3, that's probably the one that you most want to win, just because it will have implications for tie-breaking purposes potentially at the end of the season if and when the Falcons are hopefully in playoff contention. So we will see if Michael Penix and this Falcons offense can step up on the road, but we will continue today's episode talking about the Falcons defense, and we'll get into, maybe despite their dominant performance this past Monday, they still might be a little vulnerable to the play action passing game. And will George Kittle's impending return, exploit that vulnerability? Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th was World Mental Health Day, and this year we're saying thank you, therapists. Life can be tough on and off the field, and behind millions of mental health journeys are therapists who showed up, listened, and helped people take a step forward. BetterHelp is shining the spotlight on those connections while also making it simple for you to find support whenever you need it. If you've ever thought about trying therapy, this is a perfect reminder that help is out there and the right therapist can make all the difference. And with BetterHelp, it's easy to find the right match. You just fill out a simple questionnaire, and BetterHelp does all the matching for you. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at any time at no extra cost. So this World Mental Health Day, join us in celebrating the therapists who've helped millions take a step forward. If you're ready to start your own journey, BetterHelp can help you find that right therapist. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where being right pays off for you. We make decisions every day, and PrizePicks, you can cash in on those decisions. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 and up to 6 player stat projections. And if you wind up being right, you can turn your takes into real prizes in less than 60 seconds. And PrizePicks has just added stacks. So if you want to ride a player, you can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So as we know, every week presents new challenges for NFL teams. And, I learned the lesson last Monday with the Falcons having earned now the benefit of doubt. We talked a lot about respect is earned, not given. And the Falcons earned that based off of their performance on Monday night. So we will give them the benefit of the doubt. However, one of the things that was noticeable in that game, despite all the success the defense had, is that the Bills did have some success. If there's any positive you can take away if you're the Bills offense in that game, in this game, was that they had a lot of success with play action, right? The Bills had a perfect passer rating, 158.3 on play action passes against the Falcons on Monday night, thanks to a 45-yard bomb to start the game. They had a 67% success rate, which was tied for the 5th best in the NFL in week 6 on play action passing plays. But, despite those issues, the Falcons defense struggling specifically in this Bills matchup, relatively speaking, on the play action, the Falcons have generally been good against play action this year, right? They have been top 10 in success rate allowed on play action this year. So again, another sign that overall health of the defense is good. It was just that one sort of crack in the armor against the Bills. Now, they face a 49ers team this weekend that is 10th in success rate off of play action so far this year. And the 49ers were tied for the best in terms of success rate off play action just in week 6. So they actually outperformed the Bills this past weekend in play action. Now, they were tied for number 1 in terms of success rate off of play action because they were tied with some team. I don't know if you guys heard, it was the Atlanta Falcons. They're coordinated by some offensive coordinator named Zach Robinson. As we said, play action was actually successful for the Falcons last week. But, the challenge for the Falcons is going to be, against this 49ers team. If they get George Kittle back, is that going to be a huge boost to the 49ers play action passing attack? That was a huge boost to their play action passing attack last year. You guys may recall the episode we did back in June breaking down Kyle Pitts' usage in the Falcons play action, or lack of usage in the Falcons play action last year. And we compared Pitts' usage in play action with George Kittle's play action usage last year, in large part because Kittle was the best tight end in the NFL, at least in 2024, with a league-leading 425 receiving yards off of play action among tight ends. And so we know Kittle can be valuable in that arena. We know Mac Jones, who we're expecting is going to start for the for the 49ers this weekend at quarterback, has also been pretty efficient in play action. You look at where he ranks in certain efficiency metrics off of play action: 10th in success rate so far this year, 3rd in completion rate, 8th in passer rating. So pretty across the board, top 10 efficiency when it comes to play action. And right now, the 49ers have a very efficient play action attack, but the hope is, if you're a 49ers fan, and obviously the opposite of what you're hoping for if you're a Falcon fan, is that they will go from not just efficient, but to explosive with the element now that they bring George Kittle back into the offense. And so when I look at this matchup, and I'm concerned, if I'm building a game plan for the 49ers to attack this Falcons defense that has played so well this year, and sort of looking at some of where are the cracks in the armor that we can exploit, that number one factor is going to be establishing the run, right? We know that's one of the few weaknesses that this defense has shown. Falcons are currently 31st in success rate allowed on run plays this year. And I'm going to dial up play action, right? Hopefully that's going to help keep this pass rush at bay, this Falcons pass rush at bay if I'm the 49ers. And hopefully we'll be able to create some, shot plays, especially with Kittle in the lineup. And hopefully that will avoid the 3rd and mediums, the 3rd and longs that we know Jeff Ulbrich is very, licking his chops to sort of dial up the blitzes that we saw throughout Monday against this Bills that really caused problems for Josh Allen. If it caused problems for Josh Allen, it's probably going to cause problems for Mac Jones as well. And, I know historically the 49ers are always not the best team when it comes to handling the blitz and whatnot. So that is something that you want to avoid if you're the 49ers, by mitigating that by being able to get into, manageable 3rd down and distances to help mitigate that blitz. And so obviously if you're Jeff Ulbrich, the opposite is true. Your defensive game plan is we got to stop the run, which is something the Falcons have yet to do so far this year. But you don't want to necessarily, sell completely out to stop the run so that you become vulnerable to the play action. And maybe that means that we see a little bit more man coverage this weekend than we saw the Monday night compared to what we were expecting. And the reason for that is that there's at least some evidence to suggest that man coverage is slightly more advantageous against play action than zone coverage. It's not overwhelmingly so, but maybe it leads to you leaning a little bit more on your man coverage on early downs to try to mitigate whatever play action that the 49ers try to throw at you on those situations, particularly second down. I know that's something that the 49ers run a lot of play action on second down. But, I think if you can get Michael Penix in the Falcons offense to get off to a fast start on the road. That will help mitigate some of the run defensive issues, which will force the 49ers, hopefully, like we saw with several teams these last couple of weeks, to kind of abandon the run in the second halves of games. And then, if you're without the threat of the run game, that puts potentially, hopefully, the 49ers in that sort of come from behind mode. And then their play action passing becomes a lot less impactful. So, it all works in conjunction, offense and defense coming together to build some success for the Falcons. So we'll see, which team has success executing this game plan. Again, as I said, we're giving the Falcons the benefit of the doubt for the very first time here on this podcast in the year of our Lord 2025. And we'll be optimistic for once that they will be able to execute their game plan versus the 49ers executing their game plan. So we'll see. But, that's why they play the game. So speaking of playing the game, is Ray-Ray McCloud going to be playing any games anytime soon? We'll talk about that as well as some other injury updates to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So today's episode is brought to you by Mazda, who craft cars who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, we know that athletes sweat every detail, and Mazda brings that same intention in how they craft every model of car. You can feel it with the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. So, guys, we like to pump a lot on this podcast. And maybe you like to pump as well, and you tried Viagra and Cialis in the past. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. Rugiet's Go Long isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual actual formula so that you can get hard and go the distance with effects that can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night. So you can get your pump on by going to Rugiet.com. If you're ready to boost your confidence in the bedroom, head to Rugiet.com. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. And make sure you use our code so that they know we sent you. So we are getting our Thursday practice report, and 3 players stand out: Ray-Ray McCloud, Jake Matthews, who both missed practice, and then Darnell Mooney, who was limited in practice. Now, Ray-Ray stands out the most because he was listed as non-injury other, right? And there's been a lot of speculation since he was a healthy scratch on Monday night against the Bills, and I'm not going to spend too much time speculating on it, but I've seen the rumors that, it's related to Ike Hilliard's dismissal, given that Ray-Ray and Ike Hilliard go back many years to their time in Pittsburgh, I believe back to 2020. It also could be dealing with, having a much more reduced role in the offense, and maybe Ray-Ray's expressed some frustration over that. And whether that's true or not, I can't confirm or deny, but they seem plausible, at least at face value. And then when you throw in this quote unquote other designation, it kind of adds fuel to that fire, because this is the first time I've ever seen an other designation on an injury report. But ultimately, we'll kind of see how it all plays out with Ray-Ray McCloud, basically with Darnell Mooney absent, and we'll see if, Mooney can make his triumphant return to the lineup in week 7. But, I think the Falcons are going to be smart and cautious with Mooney, given, we haven't really got to see him. So I think they'll be conservative with that. And so they may, if they do play him, he'll be on the pitch count in all likelihood, or they may sit him for another week. But that's led to a lot of speculation about, are the Falcons going to make a move at the wide receiver position? As I've said before in the podcast, I don't think it makes a ton of sense for the Falcons to be that proactive on the trade market at wide receiver. Again, you have a 1,000-yard receiver on your team already for that number 2 spot, and it's Darnell Mooney. You just got to be patient and wait for him to be healthy. But obviously, that has not been the case. Through 6 games, so far this year, and may not be the case through 7 or 8 games. But again, there's still a lot of football left to be played. So we know that hamstring injuries can linger. So it is definitely a legit concern. But I do think it's valuable for the Falcons to be patient, especially since, like, you don't have draft assets. And so essentially your hope is that if you were to trade away draft assets, you would be basically making a lateral move when it comes to Darnell Mooney and I presumably in adding that sort of high level number 2. Trading draft assets to get a lesser player than Darnell Mooney doesn't make a ton of sense to me in my eyes. And then, how long is it going to take that new wide receiver to kind of click with Michael Penix? We know that, like, we saw it in the first 3 games of the season with Mooney, who missed all the training camp, and him and Penix weren't really on the same page. Now, again, Penix and none of the receivers are on the same page in that Carolina game. But I don't think it's going to be like, oh, you trade for a wide receiver next week and then boom, that guy's, starting and getting 100-yard games in 2 weeks. And so it's like, okay, if you trade for a guy, does it take him 4 to 6 weeks to kind of get up to speed in the offense? And then you really only have him for the home stretch. And it's like, okay, I get it. If you're trying to make that push, I get it. But at the same time, like, I don't really see as much upside as maybe other people see in that regard. So we'll see if the Falcons, what goes on with the wide receiver position. We'll see what happens with Mooney and McCloud in the near future. They have 1 million young wide receivers on the roster. I think it makes sense, to continue to see what you have in Casey Washington. And, of course, we know that the superstar, the future Hall of Famer, and Nick Nash is still on the practice squad. So you got Chris Blair. You got several players that we've been talking about for several months as guys that we're hoping to see contribute more. So, I don't feel like you have to bring in outside help. I understand why other people think you need to bring in outside help. The Falcons do have, could upgrade their wide receiver core. I want to make that clear. But it's just, to me, when you have limited draft assets and you need to be smart about building long-term for this team and the type of draft capital that you would have to give up to add, Jalen Waddle is a player that people talk about. And it's like, oh, you could trade for Jalen Waddle, and he and Drake London could be a great number 1 and 2 punch. Well, A, the Dolphins aren't going to trade Jalen Waddle. That's part of it. And then B, it's like, yes, that may, that you don't really need to get to B if they're not going to trade him. So we'll leave that aside. But I'm sure that trade talk will be a continued conversation for the next 2.5 weeks. But the last little tidbit is going to be Jake Matthews, his status. He was out again on Thursday, and we'll see if he's ready to go. He suffered that ankle injury midway through the Monday night game. And as we discussed on the Thursday Falcon Squad show, Jake, given his track record of, 100 and whatever, 80 plus starts in a row that he's had going all the way back to the 2014 season, consecutive starts, he's going to do everything in his power to play this Sunday. And so we'll see. My suspicion all week long was going to be that he was going to be a game time decision. So we'll probably find out an hour and a half before Sunday Night Football whether or not Jake Matthews is going to suit up. So it's kind of a wait and see situation. So, we'll have to sort of see. But basically, we know that if Jake can play, he will do everything in his power to play. And basically, the only thing that's going to stop him from playing is a fleet of doctors that are basically saying we can't put you out there. It's not in your best interest. So we'll see how that all plays out. Obviously, we've discussed as well in the Falcons Squad show, the potential impact of that with Mike Jarrell. Talked about that a little bit earlier this week on the All 22 review. You're losing a lot if you go from Jake Matthews to Mike Jarrell or Jack Nelson. I know the Falcons have mentioned Jack Nelson. I'd be surprised if the Falcons rolled Jack Nelson out there to make his NFL debut, but presumably he could be active. So that will be something that we'll keep an eye on. But it's going to mean then, as suggested on the Falcons Squad show, you got to rely a little bit more on your running game. You got to rely a little bit more on that play action passing attack to hopefully mitigate some of the issues that you're going to have at offensive tackle if you do not have Jake Matthews this weekend. So that's going to be a potential challenge for Michael Penix and the rest of this offense to overcome if Jake Matthews is not ready to go. So that will be something that we'll keep an eye on, and we'll be here breaking it all down this weekend on Sunday Night Football or Monday morning or whenever on Locked On Sports Atlanta, as well as Locked On Falcons in your post-game review, hour-long Locked On Sports Atlanta Falcons Squad post-game, and then a 30-minute rapid reaction here on Locked On Falcons, all for you following that final whistle on Sunday night to see if the Falcons prevail and get their, follow their impressive home victory against the Bills with potentially an impressive road victory against the 49ers this upcoming Sunday night. So continue to make Locked On Falcons and Locked On Sports Atlanta your first listen. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.